Hello everyone, so apparently I got stuck in Poland for a while, and this is my third race in 3 weeks, but actually it's third start because I've been in multiple tracks as well. And this time I'm in Gdynia, where it's going to be XCM, UCI C2 range, so I kind of expected there will be a lot of participants. Not the case this time around, but still it was a good place to participate because I never been in this area with a bike. So it was interesting to explore what this region of Poland has to offer because it's completely different. So we're standing at the start, and in front you can see more guys, the group of people, actually not all the guys but elite women as well, where elite group has started the race. And we are at the GIGA distance, so it's going to be 65 kilometers with 1.8 of elevation, so yeah, K. So per lap there's going to be 900 meters or so. At the start there was a loop on the paved road and I was a bit too safe, but at the same time once it got in the straight I tried to get my position better before the climb starts, because the climb is going to be pretty long one in the forest and you don't want to get behind. But as soon as I closed that distance, one guy in front hit his wheel to a participant, and then we immediately lost some time. You can see that on the bottom left there are no watts. Where are the watts? Where are the power meter, Thomas? Yeah, so apparently when standing before the start, Garmin sometimes disconnects the power meters, and I'm not exactly sure whether it's a problem of power meters itself or the Garmin, but I would guess that it's the following. It happened multiple times already, and sometimes I remember that and try to reconnect it, sometimes I forget it. So this time I forgot it, and on the climb I tried to reconnect it. So it cost me a few positions already, simply because I was just trying to reconnect it. But as soon as I did it, the guys were still close. But you can see that on this downhill it was pretty dusty. In general, everything in Europe currently, at least in eastern part, is very dry, and considering the weather conditions it was extremely dusty, and if someone goes in front you can barely see anything. So yeah, following someone in the downhills was a bit tricky thing, but as soon as the climb started it was still possible to see some participants in front, so everything is under control. Power meters are back on track and we are riding yet another uphill. Very funny thing is that the highest point of the race was around 170 meters of elevation up above the sea level, and we had per lap more than 900 meters of elevation. So it was a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs. So it was surprising that organizers made that much of elevation in such terrain. What has happened in the first lap is that whenever it got to the climb, I tried to keep up with guys, and you can see that I'm closing that gap with really hard effort. But then the downhills began. They just flew a lot faster than me. Most likely it's because of two reasons. One is that I'm just slower on the downhills of this sort. The second reason is that most of participants who participated this year in this marathon are around this region, so they know the course probably pretty well. So for a foreigner who came here for the first time, that was not advantageous at all. But yeah, you just go at your pace and don't expect any magic to happen. But on the climbs, it wasn't that bad at all. Considering there were quite steep climbs up, that means there's going to be downhills as well. And in one of the following, I just missed the corner because it was all dusty. And comparing how I rode and how others did it is, normally I just brake a bit because I can't see what's in front, so how can you go full speed? While the guys, well, they were able to go full speed, probably close to none of braking. So that was the main difference of speed gain. And in front there was a guy from a track team. On the climbs and on the flats we were in a similar speed, and I even went in front a few times, but whenever it started to be downhill it was a different story. So on the right you could have seen that one guy fall down, and he is like with city or something like that bike, and there was a category of fun, and it was fun who started half an hour earlier, and it was also, if I'm not mistaken, fun gravel, where they went with casual bikes or gravel bikes. So there were even more starts. This one was 2 laps, every lap 33 kilometers, and it was called GIGA. The same distance was went with elite athletes as well from UCI, and then there was mega category as well, where participants went for 1 lap. So there were a bit of starts, but what good thing was that everyone started at different times, and basically there were no bottlenecks at all. When the course was so dry and dusty, it was a bit tricky to go after someone, and you can see, if you see that he's braking and you have no idea why, the dust just comes out of his wheel, and then you have to figure out the reasons and the way how to go through that area. So with track guy we kind of switched multiple times, one the other in the front, but then he just shot like a gun before this downhill. It was pretty difficult downhill for me because there was a ditch in the single track center, and yeah, you could have seen that before the single track the guy with track was kind of nearby, but you can see that on the straight he was far away already. There was one place here where the mark was not exactly clear, and the guys kind of lost a bit, but as soon as we realized where we should go, some went off the bike and just run. I remained on the bike, and you can see that if you go off the bike and you're not able to ride it, the logic would say that you shouldn't block others. So it's not always the case that the logic meets reality, and that guy blocked me in the single track. I went off road and I got a branch in my rear wheel, but thankfully I was able to remove it while still riding, and on the upcoming flat and a bit of uphill I went ahead. Before that climb the guy appeared out of nowhere, like he's powered on batteries or what, but probably it was participant from the mega distance. So mega distance started 5 minutes later, and you can see that 15 minutes into the course he's managed to catch me, so probably that was one of the leaders of mega distance, I guess. Around 15 minutes into the course I've been overtook by a few guys on the climb and realized that, well, probably my powers are getting out, but those were really steep climbs, and at some point I thought that, well, probably I will stop, but I didn't, and I kept on the bike for all the climbs. So that was kind of only way how I could cherish on the race day, because I never went off the bike on the climb. So yeah, going the 34 to absolute black oval might be a bit of an overkill for those sharp and steep climbs, because you have to go on low cadence. You don't have other choice actually, unless you are going very fast. But how can you go fast on 20 grade climb unless you are very strong? So with that in mind, 32 probably would have been better for this course, even though on the flats probably there would have been a bit of speed issues, but you can see that The course was really dry and sandy in some areas, and here I chose an incorrect pathway, and again a few guys just flew over me. What I haven't mentioned yet is that we have segments from Strava in this video, and you could have seen that normally my segments were like in the top 30 or 40, I would say, but this one in the standard downhill was 70 something, so that means it was really slow compared to what I did on the race day. So if the beginning of the lap was kind of flowy and you have a bit ups, a bit downs, and it's not too bad, the second part of the lap was really harsh in terms of the climbs. So we were like 5 very sharp and steep ones and pretty long ones. So yeah, what goes up must come down, and we went in very sandy downhill here, like, because in front there were a few guys, I couldn't see anything, and from the camera it does not portray how it actually been, but trust me, visibility here when someone was riding in front was close to zero, and it was a really tricky sandy downhill to go here. So yeah, thankfully I made it without falling on the side, because there were a few close calls for sure. So Canada uphill and Estacada downhill was two pretty technical sections. So the uphill we are going here, it was rooty and steep one. One day before the race I did this section to just check what's upcoming, and yeah, it kind of almost caught me off guard, especially the downhill part. From the camera you won't be able to see the steepness, but it was really steep, very sandy, through the roots and all that stuff, so without knowing for the first time you could make yourself into trouble for sure. So knowing that was good, and thanks for Justina and Radek who showed me this part one day before the race, so that was very nice of you guys. And once we finished that estacada, we were being buffet, where you could replenish your fluids. Yeah, from yesterday I remember that there is going to be a ditch, and you can see that even though I went sideways and kind of increased my riding distance, I was still significantly faster because I didn't have to go over that ditch, and the group was left behind. However, in front there were other participants still, and I added significant amount of effort here to catch them. So yeah, I hold 600 watts for a while, and I managed to close the gap. So you can guess how it ended up. Whenever downhill started, they were just gone. One other thing which probably affected my downhill abilities in this race, apart from not knowing the course, was probably a bit too high air pressure. For the front I added 1.6 bar, for the rear it was 1.7, and on the rear I had Race Kings from Continental, which was not as grippy as I would want to. So because it was sandy and dusty, you can see that I even missed corners here because it was like too late call to turn. So talking about the tires, probably it was not about the tire selection in general, but more like choosing the proper pressure. And because it was dry and sandy in very many areas, probably a bit less tire pressure would have been beneficial. On a second lap I was alone, but then one guy with hardtail overtook me, and once the downhill started I noticed that he's not that fast like others, so I had a bit of an expectation that we are going to keep up together, but that was not for long, because sooner or later he disappeared.
Thank you, thank you.
That mistake which I made in the beginning of second lap was pretty costly, because I was not able to catch the group, and even though sometimes I saw them in the distance as we were running in a group, for me it was probably mission impossible to catch them. And it was a bit devastating to go alone. So on the second lap here I managed to find probably the right direction in this area. So the markup in specifically this location could have been a bit better, but it wasn't that bad in general. There were quite a lot of marshals in every place where they guided you whenever it was a bit more tricky. Talking about the tricky part, if there is a markup of multiple arrows, that means it might be a bit sketchy. And yeah, one participant from Elite figured out this in his own shoes, where you can see he went down this downhill. Marshall was there, but I guess that the race for this participant was over. So yeah, on the first lap in this specific area it was very steep down and then immediately up. I kind of braked a bit and the guys from the back shouted like, go, go, go. Well, then you see in front there is a ditch and you don't know what to expect. You just can't go, go, go unless you can fly. Knowing the course probably could have helped, but not at the extent where I would have been significantly faster, so that's not an excuse to make. So we were around 300 participants in total among all groups. For example, in GIGA there was only, at least for me, I believe it's only 66 participants who started the race. So it's not too much. I'm not exactly sure the reasons, but potentially maybe there was other event happening, or at the same time, because this year the course was different. It was made of 2 laps out of single long distance, so maybe that was the reason why not too much participants came to the race, and mostly there was locals around this area. There was few foreigners, one of them which was me, and also there was Estonian in elite distance, and probably 2 more from United Kingdom and Czech Republic, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it was not too much international either, and at the same time it was not too much widespread from Polish participants. I know the reasons, but if you know, just drop a comment. If I'm not mistaken, next year it's going to be a national champ here in Gdynia. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that I heard something about it. Well, maybe not. So on the second lap I was only able to catch a few guys, and both of them were already busted on the climb, where they were not able to go on their own and they just pushed the bike uphill. Myself even struggling, but I tried to stay on the bike and I did it. Again, 32 chainring would have helped, but if you chosen to go with the 34, well, what can you do? You just sit in the saddle and suffer. So on the second lap there was no one in front on this downhill sandy one, and you can see that there are a lot of logs and all sorts of things coming out from that sand. So it kind of reappeared on top when multiple riders went through that course, and it's a bit tricky to get away from them and going downhill in the sand, but it was okay. So the second lap was a bit of a challenge because for most of the time I've been alone, so it's a bit hard to keep on pushing, but I just tried to do my best. At the same time, the heart rate was not going that much up either, so maybe I a bit busted myself on the first lap, but if you don't try you will never know. So maybe next time I will do it slower, probably not. In the buffet there was a guy who gave us the bottles of drink from board. Actually he did an amazing job because he gave the bottles with a follow through, so it was a very smooth process. And we kind of at the top bar can see that only 1.6 kilometers remaining, and this was again very sketchy downhill. Sketchy because it was very loose, and you go fast, you try to brake, it doesn't brake, you just try to turn and you just skid, and that's how the Gdynia Marathon was this year. So we wished for a bit of a rain, it didn't happen, and we went the way it was. So the last remaining part was just for fun. I got some pictures from Lucky Media, and then on the final finish sprint I added some watts. You can see that it's 800 something for the whole duration, and yeah, off to the finish. Actually nice position for operator or photographer, I don't know who it was, but yeah, lying on the ground should have been nice pictures. Thank you. So in general I finished 6th among 14 participants in my M3 age group, which is not that bad, I would say. And yeah, it's about GIGA distance. And in total I was 17th out of 66 who started the race. Actually not everyone finished it. 7 or so participants haven't reached the finish. That's it, that's how CST MTB Gdynia Marathon looked like. Would I repeat it? Absolutely yes. A lot of single tracks, a lot of climbs, which I love to do, and in general it was a nice experience. By the way, whole Gdynia's region is pretty nice because there are a lot of single tracks in general. Those single tracks are very much Lithuanian alike, so it's kind of, you feel like you're at home, but you are not. There's also a trail park there, so that's something which Vilnius could learn from Poland. That's it, thanks for the time, and I hope to see you around. By the way, I kind of had a video where DT Swiss 54 ratchet went down on me, and surprise surprise, I received a replacement